Carlos Sainz racing for Williams in 2025 is officially the biggest waste of talent in Formula One history. But that may not be entirely true. When people talk about Formula One's great comeback stories, and no, I'm not talking about Max Verstappen, Williams in 2025 has to be near the top of the list. Once a team haunted by painful midfield anonymity and survival mode finishes, Williams has now transformed into a force in the mix, and much of that turnaround traces back to one man, Team Principal James Vowles. Vowles, who arrived from Mercedes in 2023, showed up with a plan. Hill-by-hill improvements, infrastructure rebuilds, patience, and smart personal decisions have turned Williams from a just-happy-to-finish team into one that earns real results. By the mid-season stretch of 2025, Williams sat 5th in the Constructors' Championship, a position they hadn't seriously threatened in years, and with more points than the previous 3 seasons combined. And all of that was possible because of another man, Carlos Sainz. He didn't leave Ferrari like drivers usually do. You know the drill: emotional farewell tour, tears on the podium, hugging mechanics like they were family, waving at fans, blowing kisses, the whole Oscar-winning exit package. Nope. One day, he was a Ferrari cornerstone, a rock in a team that had been searching for emotional balance and competitive consistency since Alonso left. And the next, he was gone, replaced by Lewis Hamilton. And Ferrari framed it like destiny. The greatest driver of all time joins the most iconic team of all time. Cue slow motion camera, epic music, people crying in their homes. But for Hamilton to shine, someone had to vanish. And in a cruel twist of irony, Carlos was everything Ferrari had been begging for since 2010. Fast enough to fight, smart enough not to crash, calm enough not to implode when the red car's weight crushed your soul, but apparently, stability isn't sexy. You need a legend, a symbol, a 7-time champ. Never mind that, your former driver could have literally done the same job. So now Carlos had to dust his CV and go job hunting, but the options were absolutely horrible. Alpine was a dumpster fire. Sauber was promising Audi in 2026, but offering little else except awkward press conferences. Then there was Williams. Williams, the once mighty juggernaut, a name that once terrified the paddock, now basically a place where F1 careers went to die quietly. For a driver like Carlos, it was like signing up to be the guy who paints the walls of a sinking ship while everyone else lounges on deck.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
Let's talk about 2025, Australia. Wet conditions, systems he hadn't fully memorized. One wrong upshift, and snap! The FW47 flipped its "you thought you were ready" switch, and Carlos DNF. Season over before it began? Not quite. The season had barely started, but Carlos Sainz was already reminded that Formula One isn't fair. China followed. And this time, he kept it together, managed the tires, crossed the line exactly where the car deserved, mid-pack. Then the universe decided to show mercy. Post-race disqualifications bumped him up to 10th place. Might be small, but in Williams' world, that's practically a lottery win. Japan, the holy grail of midfield frustration. Carlos gambled, stretching his medium tires deep into the unknown, flirting briefly with the top 10. It didn't work. Later, with fresh softs, he passed a few cars and finished 14th. Bahrain offered a glimpse of hope. Carlos launched like a man possessed, slicing into 6th place, holding faster cars behind him like a magician. For a few laps, it was old Carlos. Then, reality returned. A medium tire stint, a little contact from Yuki Tsunoda, and poof, side pod ripped. Saudi Arabia was redemption in small doses. Thankfully, this time, he didn't appear like a man who had just been railed by Charles Leclerc. Starting 6th, Carlos managed his tires, absorbed relentless pressure from faster cars, survived a painfully slow pit stop, and crossed the line 8th. Williams was leading the midfield, and Carlos even played team chess, handing DRS to Alex Albon. Miami was chaos incarnate. First corner dodge of Lando Norris turned into contact with his own teammate, which compromised performance. Imola was strategy roulette. Pit early on Williams' call, rivals capitalized under a virtual safety car, Carlos adapted, fought, clawed his way back to 8th. Not flawless, but relentless. Monaco, of course, was Monaco, with Sainz securing one lonely point. In Spain, front wing damage forced an early stop, dropped to the back. The recovery drive was maestro level. Passing Bierman and Ocon, finished 14th. Canada came with technical issues, alternative strategy, 57 laps on hard tires. Patient, intelligent, calculated, 10th place finish, and 1 point. Austria was a formation lap disaster, and Sainz did not start. Silverstone offered hope, then snatched it away. Started 9th, jumped to 7th, played the changing conditions well, pit timing disaster, fought back, and then bam, Ferrari on slicks slides off and takes him with it. 12th place finish. Hungary was a soft-to-hard gamble gone sideways. Contact from Pierre Gasly destroyed momentum. Carlos finished 14th, yet he still passed Gasly and Ocon. At Zandvoort, Carlos was running 8th, eyeing 7th, wheel-to-wheel with Liam Lawson, but in the end, it was contact. The race collapsed from what could have been 5th to 13th. Monza was pretty much a similar story. Then came Baku, starting from the front row. Carlos held faster cars at bay. By the checkered flag, he had done it. A podium finish, 3rd place, and the kind of performance that earned him driver of the day. But more than that, it was Williams' first podium in years. But things wouldn't be as sweet as Singapore, where he finished 10th. The United States Grand Prix was cruelty short for Carlos Sainz. Almost like someone hit the skip intro button on a movie you were excited to watch. Starting 9th, he had a solid launch and immediately overtook Oliver Bierman at turn 15, looking set to make another move on Kimi Andrea Antonelli. But the racing line decided to play hardball. The Mercedes driver moved into his path like it owned the place. Carlos slammed on the brakes, front tires locked up, and the inevitable contact happened. His Williams FW47 was done for, stranded on track, and his race ended in early retirement. Another weekend where potential met misfortune, and misfortune won by a knockout. Mexico didn't offer much mercy either. Chaos seemed to follow Carlos like a personal shadow. Multiple contacts in turn 1 damaged his front left tire rim, broke sensors, and left him without a functioning pit limiter. Basically a high-speed game of how many things can break at once. Undeterred, he pitted on lap 17, switched from mediums to softs, committed to a 2-stop strategy, and clawed his way up the order. Then, just to keep things dramatic, a small misjudgment at the Foro Sol had him brush the wall and retire a few laps from the finish. Brazil offered little relief, but by the time Las Vegas rolled around, Carlos began reclaiming some of the confidence that had eluded him all season. He qualified 3rd on the grid, a feat that felt like he had found the cheat codes and made the most of the weekend. Even though the faster cars eventually overtook him after his pit stop, he held his position to finish 7th. Qatar, however, was Carlos at his absolute best. Starting 7th, he gained 2 positions immediately, showing precision and composure on a track where overtaking is almost as mythical as a midfield Ferrari win. A safety car on lap 7 opened a strategic pit window, which Carlos exploited like a chess master, flipping the board, leapfrogging Kimi Antonelli into 4th. From there, he defended relentlessly, held off attacks from championship leader Lando Norris, and crossed the line in 3rd. Podium, driver of the day, Williams' 2nd podium of the season. 15 points, 9th in the Drivers' Championship. Finally, Abu Dhabi. Starting 12th, Carlos managed his tires mediums to lap 18, then nursing softs like a fine wine. For a while, he hovered around 11th, with a chance to sneak into the points, but tire degradation had other plans. He slipped back to 13th, not the fairy tale ending, but by now, the season had already told its story. 2 podiums, countless battles, and a clear message. And that has been the story of Carlos Sainz right from his debut at Toro Rosso in 2015. This man actually started his career with Max Verstappen, another young driver with huge expectations, who has more than delivered on those expectations, by the way. But Sainz was no pushover either. From the start, Sainz showed he belonged. He qualified inside the top 10 on debut in Australia and finished 9th, scoring points in his very first race. But in F1, things don't always go as planned. That early promise was followed by reality. Spins, mechanical failures, and retirements became his best friends. He had a strong qualifying pace, including a 5th place start in Spain, but races often slipped away. Midway through the season, everything seemed to go wrong at once. Electrical failures, engine problems, and a heavy crash in Russia that was so bad he had to spend the night at a hospital. Still, there were flashes of what he could do. In the United States Grand Prix, after crashing in qualifying and starting last, Sainz finished 7th. By the end of his rookie season, he had proven he was fast and capable under pressure, even if the results did not always show it. In 2016, Toro Rosso kept him, but the team dynamic changed when Verstappen was promoted to Red Bull. Sainz suddenly became the experienced driver. Overnight, Carlos went from young prospect to senior staff, minus the pay raise. He responded with some of his best drives yet, including 6th place in Spain and a strong recovery drive from 20th to 9th in Canada. However, consistency was still missing. Retirements, first lap incidents, and bad luck followed him again. If misfortune earned points, Sainz would have been fighting for the championship. He finished the season 12th overall, but scored the majority of Toro Rosso's points, showing that he had become the backbone of the team. By 2017, it was clear Sainz wanted more. He scored points early in the season and took 6th place in Monaco, one of the hardest tracks on the calendar, but tensions rose. Collisions, grid penalties, and public comments about his future showed that his relationship with Red Bull was wearing thin. At that point, the tension had less grip than Pirelli softs on cold asphalt. Then came his standout moment. At the Singapore Grand Prix, just after announcing he would leave Toro Rosso, Sainz delivered the drive of his life. He finished 4th, his best result in Formula 1 at that point. Nothing says, "You'll miss me," like your best race right after handing in your notice. He later called it his best day in the sport. By then, he had scored almost all of Toro Rosso's points that season, making it clear the team was losing a key driver. Sainz's move to Renault came sooner than expected. He joined the team for the final races of 2017 and made an immediate impact with a 7th place finish in the United States. But once again, problems followed. Renault gave him speed, then immediately tested his patience. In 2018, Sainz showed steady improvement. He regularly qualified in the top 10 and scored points in most races. His 5th place in Azerbaijan stood out, taking advantage of chaos ahead. Baku did what Baku does best: remove logic from the equation. Still, mistakes and reliability issues held him back. Some races slipped away due to penalties, strategy calls, or technical failures. By season's end, he finished 10th in the standings. Solid, but not spectacular. Renault chose to replace him with Daniel Ricciardo, ending Sainz's time with the team. Because in Formula 1, solid is sometimes just a polite way of saying replaceable. It was another setback, but also a turning point. Sainz joined McLaren in 2019, cutting ties with Red Bull completely. At first, things went badly. Engine fires, first lap crashes, and retirements meant he scored no points in the opening races. McLaren spent the first few races reminding him that new beginnings are rarely smooth. But once the season settled, Sainz found his rhythm. Race after race, he finished right behind the top teams. He became known as the best of the rest. One of his strongest drives came in Germany, where he recovered from a spin on a wet track to finish 5th. Then came Brazil. After starting last due to engine trouble, Sainz quietly climbed through the field. By the end of the race, penalties had promoted him to 3rd place. It was his first Formula 1 podium earned through patience, consistency, and staying out of trouble. He finished the season 6th overall, beating several drivers from faster teams. In 2020, he took another step forward. He qualified higher, raced more aggressively, and showed strong race awareness. At Monza, he came within half a second of winning the race, finishing 2nd after a late charge. Close enough to taste victory, far enough to still feel the pain. He followed that with a run of strong point finishes and ended the season 6th again, this time with over 100 points. By the time he left McLaren, Carlos Sainz was no longer seen as just a talented driver who needed a chance. He had become a proven performer, capable of leading a team, delivering under pressure, and making the most of any car he was given, which is exactly what we saw at Williams last year. Williams didn't suddenly become Red Bull overnight. I mean, there was no magic energy drink involved. But 2025 has shown they're no longer the team everyone expects to limp to the flag. A 5th place in the constructors, multiple podium appearances, and front row starts signal genuine competitiveness and, perhaps more importantly, a culture shift. Vowles has been clear. 2025 is already outperforming expectations, but the real target is 2026. While Williams ran a competitive FW47 this season, the team made the strategic decision to shift development focus early to the 2026 regulations, prioritizing the next generation car over incremental upgrades to this year's model. That means 2025 wasn't just a comeback year, it was a foundation year, a base layer. Less final product, more do not judge until fully cured. Think of it like this: Williams built the engine, welded the chassis, and glue gunned the aerodynamic philosophy together. And now they're ready to go full force when the rule reset shakes up the order in 2026. So, what's next? If 2025 was the year Williams proved they still matter, then 2026 is the year they intend to make people regret ever writing them off. off. With Sainz locked in through 2026, Williams will not only enjoy continuity, but also use that stability to exploit the sweeping regulation changes. This is the season where the door really opens for midfield teams to become front runners. A stable driver lineup, committed technical leadership under James Vowles, and momentum from 2 podiums in 2025 put Williams in a unique spot. While some teams will panic debugging, Williams plans to be racing. They are one of the few teams that can hit the ground running instead of scrambling to play catch up. Sainz himself has called the team and the project one of the most meaningful chapters in his career. He's referred to Williams' journey as a life project, which for a Formula 1 driver is about as long-term as it gets. If you want to see the entirety of the F1 2025 season, make sure to click on the video on your screen.